So how does the nature of a mouthpiece change the sound of the saxophone?
We have a morphology, human beings, that's our physical makeup. And in a mouthpiece and playing, the most important parts are your mouth, your lips, the chamber, your soft palate, your tongue, the shape of it, the size of it, and then how you blow, what's happening in your throat. All of that is a certain thing. Then we need to match that up with the mouthpiece that directs your air in the right way. So we can change the shapes inside the mouthpiece, the size of the chamber. We can change, like I say, the facing curve lets the reed vibrate a certain way, and there are many different curve schedules.
So the reed vibrates against the mouthpiece.
Right, and it's going back and forth very fast. It has this whole path it has to take. If you grab the mouthpiece in one place as opposed to another, one curve might work better for you than another. That's just one part of it. It's really interesting. Band directors want to say, my whole saxophone section should play the same mouthpiece so we can sound the same. I've stopped fighting them on it, but all your kids are different. All your saxophones are different. Different brands, different. The neck of the saxophone is the second most important thing. It's what you put the mouthpiece on. It really influences the sound. A lot of people don't know that. So, and the reed is really important. The reed can influence the sound a lot. But basic shapes inside the mouthpiece are the biggest influencer of the sound. A bigger shape inside makes a warmer, rounder sound. You can, we have chambers called horseshoe, square, round, a lot of different shapes, and we have step baffles, all kind of things. Most saxophone players don't know any of this. Just like I don't know anything about the car engine under the hood.
So, could we hear some of the differences between different mouthpieces?
Sure. So this is my DV. It stands for Da Vinci, and I have a patent in this mouthpiece. It's very high-end mouthpiece. It's 24 karat gold plated, made out of brass. I was trying to figure out how to make a mouthpiece that was loud enough to play on live gigs so you could hear yourself and other people could hear you, but that didn't have a shrill sound. You have to make the chamber inside the mouthpiece very small, and then you get a louder, brighter sound, but you get a shrill sound. So in reading the Da Vinci Code, the novel, they talked about the golden mean proportions. And that led me to think about what if I use that. Those proportions are found in the Stradivarius violin, on the dolphin, on the human body. Da Vinci, when he drew that man with his arms outstretched and the circle around him, that's called the Vitruvian Man, and it describes these proportions. So I put those proportions on the mouthpiece, and it led me to this extra opening under the reed that brought in this bottom. And it's a game changer for the company. So our company is 16 years old, but this was about 6 years into it, maybe 5 years into it or something, and I developed this mouthpiece, and it's, I love it. Any good mouthpiece should be able to do a lot of sounds. That was a more or less, let's say, forte or mezzo forte. If we want to do pianissimo, mezzo piano, and a more classical sound, hopefully this mouthpiece can still do that. Or something like Paul Desmond. And that's the problem with those bright, shrill rock and roll mouthpieces. They can't do that. It sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard. That I can play softly with this mouthpiece. But we have... Did you get distortion?
Yeah, it peaked.
All right, nothing like digital distortion.
Now you see that this design gave you a bottom.
If I talk like this, you got that. There's a rah thing that a shrill mouthpiece won't have. It'll just be all eh. And that's what I was trying to get. It's something from that first mouthpiece that Santi Runyon customized for me to all my prototypes. Our brightest mouthpiece is not the DB, it's this new model called the Jet, but we fought and fought to work with it to get enough bottom in it so it was still a good sound. But not everybody wants that. Some people want a really shrill sound, and I was trying to make the brightest sound when I made the Jet, but it actually, I stopped short of that, and it became really universally liked. And it's been a great release, and it's 2 years old now, so that's what we're working on in the baritone, the Jet model. So to start kind of from the beginning, I have a wooden mouthpiece from France, very big chamber. The sound, in those days there weren't people with knobs. All music was acoustic, and so the sound required was a lot softer. So this mouthpiece has a huge chamber inside. It's made out of wood. The tip opening, the distance that the reed has to travel is very small. So here's the sound of that. Actually, I'm going to put a harder reed on to make it a better trial, because since the reed doesn't have to travel very far, a harder reed works better. A reed that is more dense, it takes actually more energy to make it go. More wind, more pressure with your embouchure, with your mouth. So that's kind of the sound of that. And that's, I think, quite a bit different than the other one. And then a typical student mouthpiece, the mouthpiece that they get in the case, is designed to be soft sounding so that the band director can deal with a saxophone section, because he's got to deal with clarinets and flutes. He doesn't want those saxophones. Saxophone is a loud instrument. So the mouthpiece is designed to keep it quiet. But in jazz and popular music, we need a louder saxophone. So that's why we use these different mouthpieces, one of the reasons. So here is a typical student mouthpiece. Not too much difference than the French mouthpiece. And this French mouthpiece that I have, you can take a look, it has teeth marks on the top there, on the beak. Somebody really did a number with their teeth on this mouthpiece. It's probably over 100 years old. So then here's my Jet, which is a bright mouthpiece on the edge of as bright as I want to get. When I say bright, I mean more highs, more high partials of harmonics in the sound, as if you had an EQ on your stereo and you put all the highs up. And that helps you when you're playing, again, with contemporary rock and things. The highs let you cut through more. It has a shorter facing curve. It's a different facing curve. I know this is getting technical, but that part of the facing curve helps me play altissimo. So altissimo means very high notes they're not normal on the saxophone, almost like altered techniques. Oh yeah, I'm playing this hard reed now. I gotta go back to the soft reed. I thought, wow, this is too hard to play. So every mouthpiece kind of you can fit just the right reed. Most of what I do when I travel is educate. I'm trying to teach people some of these things that they wouldn't know. People don't go out and try mouthpieces. They don't know a lot about reeds or don't like that one.
So when you demonstrate at a show, you talk about the mouthpiece, the reed, the combination, and demonstrate it.
Yes, usually in my clinics that I do, I'll do tone production. I'll talk a lot about tone. apart from the mouthpieces. How you can work your tone, develop the sound that you want, techniques of breathing, for sure, sound development, and then I'll get into mouthpieces, just talk in general about the differences, what you can look for, how to try a mouthpiece. It's not a hard sell at all. It's more, like I say, education, but I'll go into the models and try and point a little bit toward that. So altissimo begins, here's the first altissimo note. Then normally most saxophone players can play that high. That's about it. It's kind of depends on the time of day here. All right, so that's a little bit of difference in sounds. My hard rubber is our traditional jazz piece that you would think of, maybe could play in a big band from the 50s to up to today. It's our most popular piece with the jet nipping at its heels.
Now, which of these mouthpieces comes closest to the original Jody Jazz?
Well, the original was Santis Runyon's mouthpiece that he customized for me, and then I went into the factory and worked that on all the ones. The jet is actually closest, and I feel the sound of the jet has this purity that I really like. It's got a bigness and enough bottom, but with this power. It's a really cool mouthpiece, and it's more expensive than maybe the average mouthpiece, but not by that much. Our DV is quite a bit more expensive, but they're in a lot of high schools and colleges all over the place. It allows us to be in that market because we are kind of known as a high-end mouthpiece company, but the plan always was to try and be in the school market. Education has always been just part of me, so I really love going to the schools and seeing the kids. People would be amazed at the band programs out there and the niceness of the kids. They go all over the place, and these kids are just good kids. If you're a parent, you want your kid in band. That's the kids you want your kids hanging out with. Those are the nice kids.
Tonight, I am talking with jazz musician and music equipment entrepreneur Jody Espina. Now, you mentioned earlier about the benefits of music and music education.
Yes.
What are your feelings about the state of music education these days?
I'm very in it because part of my business is school bands, and so I go around the country. My goal is to meet as many band directors as possible, get into the band rooms. I see so many positive things. In the recession of 2009, the band and orchestra business was the actually best in the whole music industry. We hear a lot about bands being cut and things, but the band boosters come up, the parents are supporting. There's a lot of strong programs around the country, and I think people are starting to get it. So it's a no-brainer. It's like exercise. It's a no-brainer. We need to have the kids exercising, duh, and we need to have the kids, I say, playing music and art, all of it. Acting, painting, all of it. But it's just, I know it's hard to fit it in, but music makes the brain better. And it teaches something that's, sports are great as well. They teach you how to work together. But music is non-competitive. It teaches a teamwork that's non-competitive. Sometimes in bands they have competition for chairs and things, but when you're playing and the whole band lines up, and this can happen in a beginning band or in a symphony orchestra, a professional orchestra, and it happens no more necessarily in the professional orchestra than it does in the beginning band, which is the special moment that crystallizes and everybody's playing together. Everybody forgets themselves for a moment and the music's just working. Everybody gets goosebumps. It's about goosebumps for me. Everything is about goosebumps for me.
So what are some of your present collaborations?
As far as music, I play down at Rancho Alegre every Friday and Saturday, and we've had that almost 5 years. So we play with Bill Smith, Mitch Hennis, Maggie Evans, and we feature drums twice a month there. So we add to the trio, we add the quartet. It's been really successful for Rancho Alegre. He wouldn't have us for 5 years if it hasn't been financially good for him. We just need more live music, and that's a societal issue.
What do you think could promote live music here in Savannah?
I think there's enough people out here. We just need to have some club owners who put the thought behind it and give it the space to get the legs, to get the wind in the sail. You have to work at it. You can't just put some musicians there and let them play for 3 weeks and then stop. You've got to work. You got to do your work. From doing this business, we're packed every weekend at Rancho Alegre's. But even still, anytime I'm in a hotel in Savannah, I always go over to the concierge and say hello and talk about what we do. It's promoting. Always be promoting. If you get music, you got to promote it. That's all I'm saying is find a place that feels good to have music and then work it and be committed to it for at least 6 months. Because some people start it and stop it. And the musicians can't rely on the club owner to do it all, and the club owner can't rely on the musicians to do it all. They both have to do it together and work together.
What do you think about the local music festivals that feature jazz?
The Jazz Festival is a gem that Savannah has that they don't appreciate, because it's one of the few in the country that's a free festival. Nobody has to pay anything to see music for a whole week. And it's one of the few things that give, in that first half of the week, all local musicians a chance to play. The Savannah Music Festival is a great festival, but doesn't really do anything for the local music scene. And I take issue with that, and I would like to see them spend a little bit of money and sprinkle the squares with music, some free concerts, so that we could make it a musical city where they're happening by chance upon all these little musical events. And for a festival of this size, they can afford it easily to make a bunch of more musical happen. So with the free festival, you have 3 or 4 concerts every night, 3 or 4 bands, and then you have the big things in the park on the weekend, and then you have a jam session. It's late at night, the jam sessions, but that's a real scene. That's old school jam session. And usually the famous musicians who play on the weekend come over, and then the younger players, the college kids, and the local players, they all get to mix it up, and it's usually really fun. So I just like to see the city wake up to the Jazz Festival. It's the one event that I know of that brings more people of different backgrounds together. And I love that. And that's what I love about Rancho Alegre, too.
You have played with unusual groups of musicians. What's an example of this?
One of my best friends is from New York, Rolf Sturm. We have a trio with a trumpet player, Rob Henke. It's an unusual trio without bass, but whenever we play, no matter if it's been a year since we've seen each other, it always clicks, and that people don't think that trio is going to sound good. As soon as they hear it, they forget about bass. It just works.
This group, of Jody Espina on saxophone, Rob Henke on trumpet and alto horn, and Rolf Sturm on acoustic guitar, is called Tricycle. And here from their eponymous album is the tune Slow Dance. Well, I want to thank you so very much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. It was really enjoyable. I appreciate you putting this attention on the local music scene. There are some great players here, and coming out and hearing live music is not just about hearing the music, it's about getting with your community, seeing people. Savannah's a great little small town that you can go out and probably run into somebody you know, and sometimes it was just pushing ourselves out the door, and we're always glad we did.
Let's wrap up with Somebody Loves Me, featuring Jody Espina on clarinet. This is from the Jews and Jazz in America at the Mikveh Israel Synagogue, with Stephen Bryan on piano, Linus Enochson on bass, Jackson Evans on guitar, and Ira Miller on drums. This has been another edition of Music Local and Sustainable, and I've been your host, Dave Lake. Save this time for another show next week.
Well, I know we ain't headed for the Hall of Fame. Gonna give it what we got, man, that ain't no shame. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2. Let me know if you can hear me. Check, check, 1, 2.